So the next component of your report is you're going to create a data table. Now, of course, this is going to be the name of your report. This is just the name I created for me to kind of tell me I need to create a video for you guys on this topic. So your name is going to be different than what I've got here. So we are in Google Docs, which is Google's version of a word processor. And we've already created the cover letter here. So this is my project title, and I put myself as the author, and this is the class number, the course number and the section, as well as the semester and the year. Now, what I've got showing here is you'll notice that I've got some of this text, it looks like text in blue. This is actually text that will not print. These are carriage returns. These blue dots are spaces, and it shows page breaks. So being able to see these formatting marks will give you greater control over the formatting of your document. And if you don't have that, I can really quickly show you. To bring that up, go to View and make sure that Show Non-Printing Characters is marked. If it's not, just left click on that and these should appear. Okay, and something else that is showing is this navigation outline on the left-hand side. And you'll see right here, we have the project title, Analysis of Roller Coaster Design in the United States 2015, and that's exactly what we got here on the right. So on the left is literally an outline of your entire paper. And you can see we've got Roman numeral 1, Introduction, Roman numeral 2, Definitions, Roman numeral 3, and so on. And there's even subheadings here. And I've set this up for you this way. And what's nice about setting it up this way, so that you've got this navigation outline on the left, is you can very quickly go to any section that you want just by clicking on it. Okay, so, of course you can scroll up and you can scroll down, but you can just jump around to any section just by clicking on the outline. Okay, which is really neat, especially when your project gets longer and longer and longer. And as your project, as your paper gets longer and larger, it's really nice to be able to see all of it at a glance, to see what you've got, and that helps you figure out what you need to contribute or add to it. So in this particular video, we want to add a data table of your data. Now, I've left in here an example data table. This is a relatively simple data table. It's got 3 random variables: year, cheese consumption, and bed sheet suffocation. And I've got the units for each of these random variables. Year is self-explanatory. And so there's a couple of things to note about this example. Number one, the way that Google Docs formats this outline is based off of these heading levels. So you can see 3 results as a heading level 1, and data table is a heading level 2. And when you look at the outline here, you can see that the results being heading level 1, it is not indented, and data table, which is heading level 2, it is indented. And what that means is this kind of lives inside of that. It's kind of, this data table with heading 2 is nested inside of the results section. So when we create a data table for our own data, not using this example, we're going to try and mimic everything that we've got set up here. So to kind of tell you first about where we're going and what we're trying to do, we're going to create this heading called data table. We're going to replicate that up here above. And we're going to create this table here. But all of your tables and figures need to have captions. So we're also going to add a caption down below. And to keep your table and your caption together, we're actually going to put all of this inside of a larger table. And the larger table, I've set it to be dashed lines. Ideally, you're going to want to not have dashed lines. You're actually going to want to make the line white so that you don't see it at all. But I made it dashed just so you can see how all of this is kind of structured together. So let's get started. All right, so right here under results, I'm just going to hit enter a couple times to create myself some space. And the first thing I'm going to do is let's just type in data table. All right, now you can see that what I just typed in here, it's in a normal text style. And so this drop-down menu is your styles drop-down menu. And what you want to do is you want to click on that and change the style. Make sure that you select all this text. Change the style of that text to heading 2 and click apply heading 2. All right, and what you'll notice is that the text wasn't boldened at first, and now it's bold. Bold is part of the style of heading 2. And now that we've applied a heading style to this text, it now shows up here in our outline. Okay. So again, I'm starting to try and replicate what this example shows down here below. Okay, so we've got data table here. So let's next add a table, which is going to be 1 column and 2 rows. The top row will hold the data table of our data itself, and the second row will hold the caption. So to do that, we can go to, I think, insert, and we can insert a table. And, if I were to drag the mouse cursor over this way, this is creating columns. And if I go downwards, that creates rows. So looking at my data, I've got, this is off camera here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 columns. So I'm going to want to drag over to 9. So I've got 9 random variables. They are name, park, track, speed, height, drop, length, duration, and inversions. The top row is going to be the title of each column. And then I'm going to want a couple rows of data just to kind of show what it looks like. And then I'm just going to have an extra row here at the bottom. So the table that I need to add is going to be 9 columns wide and 4 rows deep. Actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm sorry. All we want to do, first of all, is create this outermost table. So I'm sorry, that's going to be 1 column by 2 rows. So insert table, 1 column, 2 rows. Okay, so in this cell is what we're going to put our data table, and this cell down here will have our caption. So I already was describing the data table, and I needed to have 9 columns wide by 4 rows deep. And so now you can see it has created a 9 column wide table by 4 rows deep inside of this first cell. Okay, so now I need just to put in my column headings. So this top one, this is name, and then I've got park, and then track, speed, height, oops, and then drop, and then duration, And let's see here. Name, park, track, speed, height, drop. Oh, after drop, it's length, duration, and inversions. Okay. So we won't worry about, this text wrapping here just yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in just a couple of rows of sample data to kind of show what this looks like. So one of the rows of data that I have is Millennium Force. Then Cedar Point is the park. The track is steel. The speed is 93. The height is 310. The drop is 300. The length is 6595. 6,595. The duration is 165. And the inversions is 0. All right, now let's see. Let me give another row of data. Let's see, what's another good one? This one should work. Okay, so another one is, the name of the ride is called Rattler. And that is in Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And that has a wood track. And that has a speed of 73. And 179.5 for the height. The drop is 166.5. The length is 5,080. And the duration is 146. And the inversions is 0. Okay. So what I've got is 2 rows of data. And then to kind of show that this continues further, I'm just going to put 3 dots, which means I've got more than 2 rows of data. Okay, remember, you're not going to be copying these exact words and numbers exactly, because your data set is going to be different than mine. Okay. So we kind of have the skeleton of our data table. So now let's flesh out our skeleton. So let's see here, name, park, track. Okay, speed, we need to put units in. So if I hit enter, I think this might be in miles per hour. The height, let's make that feet. The drop, it's going to be feet. The length, let's just go ahead and use feet again. The duration, I think this is probably in return seconds, and inversions, we don't need a unit for that. Inversions, I guess I could put and say, can I cannot quickly interpret what 0 and 1 means. So let's leave that out. That'll be explained later. All right. So we've got the random variable names, and we've got units where possible. Let's see if we can make this look a little bit better. So take this first row, and let's make this text bold. All right, so we've got the column headings in bold, and let's see if we can fix this going out. So in order to try and fix that, we need to make it a little bit longer. So to make that longer, we actually have to maybe shorten a few of these. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the cursor onto the vertical line that separates two columns. And you'll notice the cursor changes. And when I left click and hold, or left click and drag, I can now move that border over. Let's see if I double click it. No, it doesn't resize it. Okay, so now I can drag that over, drag that over, and drag this one over too, so that inversions potentially a little bit more. See, can I move this over and get that in? Oh, then that changed link. There we go. Okay, so it took a little bit of work, but I was able to spread these out reasonably enough. Just do the best you can, like I did. All right. And the next thing I would potentially do to make this look a little bit better is if you left click and you kind of drag, you can select these other columns and rows. And these numbers, let's see, I should be able to center them. So if you go under the format menu, go to align and indent, and I can click center. And it takes these numbers and it centers them in the middle of each of these cells. So that looks pretty good. I could do the same with these, but because they're words, it kind of works out better if you just have a left justified like they already are. Numbers tend to look good when they're centered. Okay, so let's see how we're doing compared to what we have below. Okay, so we have column headings and they're in bold. We've got units. Column headings, they're in bold, and we have units. Got a couple of rows of data, and we put some extra dots here to show that this continues going down. All right, so we have something that's good enough. Okay, we have a data table, but what we want to add is we want to add a caption down at the bottom. So remember, we originally created this outer table that was one column and two rows, so that this bottom row could hold our caption. And so because this is a table, we're going to label this as a table. And we don't yet know if this is going to be table 1, table 2, or table 3, because we might have more tables. So I'm just going to call this table A. I can rename it later. And what is table A? So table A is the random variables connected to roller coaster design parameters. Roller coaster design parameters. Yeah, that'll be good. So here we've got random variables connected to roller coaster design parameters in the data file. Let's add in the data file. All right. And we could add one more thing. We could quickly explain kind of what inversions 0 means. So enter, and we can say inversion equaling 0. This means a 360 degree inversion exists, and inversion equals 1, a 360 degree inversion does not exist. Okay. So that just kind of explains a little bit what a 0 and a 1 means in the data. So in your caption, you can put some notes like this that kind of help explain what you're looking at. But for the most part, that was the only thing we needed to add because we know what name of a roller coaster means. We know what the word park refers to. It's the theme park it came from. Track, when we see steel and wood, we think, oh, that's what it's made of. And then speed, which is miles per hour. All of these are pretty self-explanatory. We just don't really know what inversions 0 and 1 mean. So we just kind of give that a little bit of context down there. Okay, so we've got our data table. We have our caption for our data table. And so now what we can do is focus on this outer table. What I would do at this point is hold off on doing anything with this outer table, these lines being solid, because you may want to be able to see them as you're building your report. When your draft is final and you're done, then I would go in and change the color of these to white. And that will effectively make them disappear and you won't see them anymore in your final paper. So, but for right now, I would just leave them. And so this is what I have for the specific data set that I also have. And so I'm going to delete this one because this was just an example. So let me hit delete. All right. So that concludes this video on creating and formatting a data table for your project report.